My dogs are harassing each other. This is a bit of a cautionary tale, and you'll see what I mean as we get into it. Okay, I don't know what's happening. What's up, magic makers? Drew here, and I'm back with another witchy tale, and this one, of course, is called Darkness Follows. This is kind of a cautionary tale, and you'll see what I mean as I get into it. What do I mean by darkness, though? Let's clear that up real quick before we get into it. I'm not talking about yummy dark goddess energy. I'm not talking about the stillness. I'm not talking about shadow, inner darkness. I'm talking about something else. I completely understand why there are people who label certain energies or entities or whatnot demonic because of the way they feel and the things that they do. I personally don't do good and evil, so I don't really look at things in that black and white type of manner, but witches know about darkness. Shamans know about darkness. Now, I don't know if there's a difference. I only know my perception, my reality. And since I kind of fall into both these categories, I don't know if everyone sees, I know there are people who don't see things the way I do for sure, but there are multiple types of darkness, and some darkness is malevolent and is nasty and it seeks to hurt. It feeds off of anger and fear and hatred, all of the ugly things about humanity. And it seeks people out who are weak or who are already in that type of emotion, and it cultivates it within them. It creates it in their environment. It brings it out in them, and it feeds on it. I call this type of energy inhuman entities. Now, technically, angels and the little people could be considered inhuman entities, because for me personally, an inhuman entity is anything that is not now and never has been incarnate on this earth as a human being. So there are lots of things that could fit into that category. But typically when I personally use that term, I am referring to the not nice things. And again, there are multiple shades in that category. Anything from the bulk of the human shadow that gets left behind when someone dies and they haven't dealt with it, that kind of hangs out and possibly takes on a life of its own, to things that I would call archaic and just sort of, they just sort of are. They just exist, and it's, call it what came out of Pandora's box. I don't know what it is, and I'm not an expert on the topic. And I don't think it matters what we call it. It is what it is. So that's the kind of thing that I'm referring to in this video. As any of you who have watched my channel for any amount of time will know, I worked at a little witchy shop years ago. And my boss lady was not only my boss, but a best friend, an older woman. She was a witch and very knowledgeable about not only the craft, but many other things. And I learned many things from her and many things from the other people who were part of this community that sprung up around this shop. I helped cultivate that community. My boss lady was sort of a half and half resident. This is a seasonal area, and I live at the beach, and she was here half the year and then way far away, like 5 hours, 6 hours away, in her regular home the other half of the year. So when she was away, I was sort of the face of the shop. I became very familiar with everything in the store, with all the customers. We had many regulars, and it's funny because my boss lady, Elle, would have her regulars, and I had my regulars, and some of them overlapped, but a lot of them didn't. And it was just sort of funny how that works out. I began making my product and selling it in her shop. She allowed me to do so, and my husband as well. At the time, my husband and I sort of were separate. I had Drew's pure intentions, and he had a touch of alchemy. After we left and we went up on Etsy, we merged together into one, and now it's Creations from the Hollow. But that's significant to the story. It's the only reason I bring it up. At any rate, I was sort of second in command. So as I said, we had many regulars, and they would, regulars or not, ask us all manner of questions, whether it be about crystals, so many questions about crystals, or about the craft, any aspects of it, or correspondences, just about the singing bowl. I mean, anything that we had in the shop and beyond, questions we couldn't answer, but, and they also taught us many things. But the questions, there were a few times, there were at least 3 times that I was there that the questions went into a darker shade. And I'm talking about an inhuman shade, or at least a really nasty haunting a couple times. There was plenty of times where there was haunting stuff coming up, but we had an outside consultant, if you will, that we would refer them to for that kind of thing. But I'm going to give you one specific example of what is the predictable outcome, in my experience, for what happens when you step in to help people in these situations. We had these 3 regulars that would come in all the time. It was a husband and a wife and their best friend, who was their roommate, a woman. The husband and the wife had a child, a young child, and the roommate had a young child as well. And they came in the store all the time. They were lovely. They were witches. At least the 2 women were. And they'd come in and purchase and talk. But one year, and I want to say it was in the fall, they were coming in and expressing issues that they were having in the home. And at first they started out very sort of slowly and subtly, and then they began to escalate. And it's the kind of thing that you would expect in a haunting, and that was the initial direction that we thought, but it became much more malevolent over time and actually began to mess with the 2 babies, the young children. And that is the easiest way to get my hackles up, is to mess with the babies. I don't like it. So I jumped on board the last time that they came in about it, and said, okay, look, this is what we need to do. And, I basically gave them the advice to do whatever sort of cleansing ritual they were comfortable with, call on whatever was empowering to them on a spiritual level. And I sent them away with some of my own product because it was what we had in the store that I felt was appropriate for the challenge at hand. So I sent them away with, I had ritual salts at the time, which I still make but don't sell. Just a cleansing salt for them to bathe the babies in. And then actually, I'm leaving out, they came in together, but one of the women the roommate had already moved out because it had gotten that bad, but she was still having some problems. So I sent them with bath salt, the ritual bath salts for the babies, cleansing spray, and a binding kit, which at the time I called an exorcism kit, because it's kind of both, but I call it a binding kit now. And essentially, it is a loaded candle, and there's other items in the kit. And the purpose is to burn it, set your intention, and it draws in whatever energies or entities are undesirable and binds them and the remnants, and you take what's left and you take it very far away from you and get rid of it appropriately. There's directions, the whole nine. And I told him exactly, and I stressed the important parts and sent them on their way. Now, the next time I saw them was a month or two later, and the situation, to my understanding, was better. They weren't having the problems that they were having. Whatever they decided to do, along with my assistance, had helped and worked. But in the meantime, that night, after I sent them away and had helped them, I locked up the store and I went and I got in my vehicle and I was driving home. Now, the beach that I talk about is actually an island, a small island off the coast where I live. And in order to get to it, you have to take a bridge. And the bridge there's two ends. And the end that I live by and that I usually travel is this big arch of a bridge, huge arch. It's actually really beautiful. Maybe one day I'll show you guys some pictures or something. But I was driving over the bridge. It's dark, it's night. And all of a sudden, I'm about halfway up the incline going off the island. And I feel someone is watching me. And I looked in the rear view and into the back seat because it was coming from my right. And I didn't see anything, not with my physical eye, nor my third eye, my intuitive inner eye, but I very distinctly felt it. And I had dealt with this kind of thing before. I had helped others. I had dealt with darkness before. I'll do another video talking about my big altercation later, another witchy tale. But I was somewhat prepared. I mean, I didn't expect it, honestly. I didn't think about it, but I wasn't surprised when it happened. And I sort of sat up straight, and I just said, you cannot be in my vehicle. You absolutely cannot come home with me. You are not welcome. You are not allowed. I won't tolerate it. Get out. And I'm sure there was a better way to handle the situation to try to neutralize the energy, but I wasn't going to take that home to my family, and I'm in the middle of driving. So my instinct was just to send it away. And for me, if that doesn't work, I call in bigger guns, but it worked. It left. And even before, I was probably on the same point on the other side of the bridge going down, descending to the mainland, that I was coming up when it came in. It's just a matter of, a minute. But that's kind of the cautionary tale I was talking about. There are some other stories, and maybe I'll tell them at another point, about situations that arose with customers, and I tried to help them. And I'm definitely going to tell you about situations that arose with myself. But when you try to help someone who is in a situation with this dark, inhuman energy, it doesn't like it. Because as I said, this kind of energy feed entities, energies, whatever you want to say. They feed off of the ick of humankind. And if you try to help liberate someone from that, you're taking away their food source, their power source. And they don't like it. So that energy will try to come at you. So if you are going to help someone in situations like that, you need to be strong, and you need to be prepared, and you need to be ready to have a defense against that. I'm not saying, if you're not comfortable with that, then don't get involved. But the majority of the time, if you are just strong within yourself and in your belief system, and you're putting up with no nonsense, you're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. And occasionally you might need to call in help, but that could be whatever you work with, whatever guides or deity or what have you that you work with that could kick some malevolent energies, but then that's all you need to. But again, if you're not comfortable with that kind of thing, then don't help out. I don't care how much you love them. Don't help out people who are in that situation, because it's like that expression, you know, laying with dogs that have fleas or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with, you know, that these people have done something wrong, but if you get involved, that is going to get on you. So just know that going in. This one's kind of rambly. Sorry. As always, thanks for listening, guys. And until next time, much love and gratitude.